Greetings! Welcome back to Couch Critic with me, Dennis P. And first off, I have to apologize. I know I haven't been making a lot of videos the last little while. I've just been mad busy. The summer is definitely not a resting period for me. A lot of work. But I think the last video I gave you guys was the Liam Delap signing, and much has changed since then. Let's just be real. Chelsea are now world champions for the next 4 years. Don't let anyone take that away from you. That is the distinction that we have earned for the next 4 years, and rightfully so, by beating PSG in the final 3-0 quite easily. And again, we've made a lot of acquisitions in that time as well. Not just Delap, we signed Bino Gittins, we've signed the likes of João Pedro, who helped us in that Club World Cup final. And obviously right now we're here to discuss the signing of JORREL, who has come into this side as a left-sided defender, and one who I think is going to be very, very well deployed in this setup. I think that he's a glove-in-hand fit when you look at what Chelsea do offensively, defensively, and in transition. I think that HATO matches everything that Maresca wants to do on that left side. Now, we're going to look at how he's going to be deployed tactically first. We're going to look at what he offers, and we're also going to look at some of the pros and cons in some of those setups. Now, first and foremost, let's just get this out of the way right away. He is not the finished article. He has played a lot of games for Ajax and he's experienced, but he's not the finished article. He's very young in his football. And anyone that expects an 18, 19-year-old player to come into Chelsea and just hit the ground running and be, everything that we want him to be in a football player is really just needs to get their head checked, because that's just not how football works. It's a very, very difficult sport. The tempos change from league to league. The physicality changes from league to league, and he's going to have to acclimatize himself to that before we can see the best of JORREL HATO. But what we do have, and the reason why Chelsea have signed this guy, has a lot to do with, number one, technical ability. How long have I been banging on about the fact that in order to play for this Chelsea Football Club, you have to possess technical ability, and you have to be technically sound to get on the pitch for this side? It's just, without that, you just cannot play for this team. And in JORREL HATO, that is the number one quality that stands out for him right now. He is technically sound, he is composed and poised on the ball. He doesn't seem to get rattled when he's in possession. And these are the requirements that you need to play a Maresca style football. Now, obviously he's been deployed as a center back and also a left back, and I think that Chelsea have bought him specifically for the duality that he plays with. Obviously we're going to be using him more as a backup to Cucurella as a left back, but in a pinch, he can certainly play left of three, and we'll get into the technical side of things and the tactical side of things as well. And he can also be that more marauding left back, get up and overlap, underlap, invert. All of that stuff are things that we can see from JORREL HATO once he starts to mature in the style of football that Maresca wants us to play. But as of right now, the number one requirement that he needs to possess is technical ability, and he has that. He absolutely has that. Shows so much poise, so much composure on the ball. Doesn't play a foot wrong when he's playing the ball. I think he passes it somewhere in and around 90, 95%, if I'm not mistaken. And, it's just really, really sound. And one of the things that you notice when he's been playing for Ajax, obviously he's captained them about 6 or 7 times as well. One of the things that you notice is that his teammates trust him in possession. When they're being pressed, when they're looking for an outlet, when they're looking for somebody to break the press, they always look for JORREL. He often gets 80, 90 touches a game because his teammates trust him. And for a player of that age to command that many touches in a side like Ajax, who obviously possess the ball and have talented footballers all over the place, you can understand why Chelsea would want somebody that in their side. Because number one, when we play football, our back line, the back three that we play with as we're playing out from the back, when we're in possession, they're going to get the ball 80, 90, 100 times a game just by the nature of how we play football. And you have to be technically sound, composed, and poised in order to receive the ball that many times and then not make very many errors when you're in possession. So I think that that's the first quality that we look for in JORREL HATO, and I think that as he grows and as he becomes more acclimatized to what we're trying to do, we're going to see that flourish. Now, the next aspect of his game that stuck out for me was his physical tools. Clearly, JORREL HATO is very, very pacey, gets up and down the pitch with and without the ball quite effortlessly, carries the ball at pace quite effortlessly, and these are all things, of course, that we can use. Some of that is pacey when we're pressing up high, has the recovery pace to get back, and snuff out danger. And again, he's shown that he has the ability and the fearlessness to get forward, play high up the pitch without any real threat of anything getting in behind him. Physically, he is without question a specimen that, you know, once he learns a little bit more about the game, how to defend and whatnot, is going to be very hard to play against because he has those physical tools. Now, obviously, he was groomed first as a center back, which means that he had to be physically stronger than, you know, what you would traditionally see in a left back, right back. And, you know, you see that his body, this composition of his body is not small. He has a lot to fill out still, but in terms of what he looks like on the pitch, he doesn't look out of place there. He looks like a guy that has been playing football for a long time and can go on to play for longer because he's just physically sound. Like he's strong. He looks like he has a strong frame and is able to use it. And when you couple that with pace and then also the technique that he has, you can see why he's a glove in hand fit with what Chelsea want to do right now. We're going to get into the tactical side of things and really focus on how we think that he will be deployed at Chelsea, and I think it's a no-brainer. Like I'm pretty sure that anyone that has watched much of Chelsea play right now understand what the role of the fullbacks are in our setup. First of all, you have to be able to invert into the midfield. That is a skill set that you have to be able to possess, and he's obviously shown that he can do that. You have to be able to provide width on the outside. Now, we haven't seen a lot of that at Ajax, and I think it has a lot to do with how they deploy their fullbacks. For the most part, when you see JORREL HATO play on the ball in the final third, he's mostly central. They bring him inside and they use the wingers to provide the width. So, you know, a lot of the times what you see is he's more of the playmaker, like looking to play those line-breaking passes into Broby or into any of the attackers that are on the pitch at the time. And he's quite effective in that role. And I can see him being deployed in a similar way at Chelsea. Obviously, you know, with him coming inside, linking up with our forwards, I think that he have a lot of success working with somebody like Delap, who likes to pin his defenders in a similar fashion to Broby and then use his physicality to get in behind. I think JORREL HATO recognizes those situations quite readily to isolate defenders with, you know, an aggressive forward is something that he has in his locker. Again, he's very tactically astute, having been trained in that Ajax side, when to recognize those situations and uses them quite frequently. So I think that he'll have a lot of success in that respect, working with the likes of Delap, with a more physical, obviously, center forward. But I also think that he'd be great in overlapping areas where he can be holding the width and looking to whip in crosses. He's very good with his delivery from out wide as well. So, you know, these are the types of things I can see him doing in the final third, whether it be an underlap coming in, playing a little bit more central, or whether it be an overlap and providing the width and whipping in crosses. I think that he can be deployed in either of those, you know, sequences where Chelsea are looking to, you know, really probe and hurt teams. Now, the other way I can see him being deployed is left of three in a back three setup. Obviously, when Chelsea are in possession, if you watch Chelsea play last year under Maresca, a lot of the times what they do is they build with three in the first phase, two in the second phase, then four, then one. And what that ends up happening is one of our fullbacks, whether it be the left or right-sided fullback, they usually press up the pitch, get into that half space, and provide a little bit more width on the side. Similar to how I was speaking of JORREL HATO in the last segment, but he can also play the left side of the back three, which is obviously, you know, probably the prototype for him because he's already played as a center back and he's very comfortable on the ball. So you can certainly see him being deployed left side of three when we're pushing the right back into the midfield or further forward up the pitch to hold the width. So if it's a right back, Gusto obviously flying up on the right side as we saw him do to eviscerate that PSG side, you know, you would see the likes of Cucurella hold space and make up the back three. And I can see JORREL HATO being used exactly in that way. Now, obviously, he is naturally a center back by trade. That's how he was brought up. That comes natural to him, first and foremost, being a defender. And I think that obviously him being very comfortable in possession and being able to pick passes and whatnot, we can use that to a devastating effect as well. You're going to have to be able to do that in this Chelsea setup just because our center backs, our back three will see a lot of the ball. And the things that you like about JORREL HATO in possession is the fact that he recognizes situations where players are occupying the half spaces and he's able to punch it into them immediately. I think that was one of the skill sets that we talked about with him in the final third, but he can also do that from that, that back three, left of three position where, he's on the ball and is just looking to just punch it into one of our attackers. Again, the deployment aspect of how he will be deployed in this Chelsea team just provides us with so much tactical flexibility, having gone from center back to left back, and then obviously playing further up the pitch when asked to invert or, make up the midfield. So he's played in all the roles that we've asked of Cucurella. He's played in all the roles and excelled in them at Ajax, and I expect the reason why we were after this guy is because we don't see any real challenges for him adapting to our style of football. The pace of the Premier League, the physicality of the Premier League is something that he hasn't really experienced. Obviously he played in Europa League and whatnot, and he came up against Premier League competition, but just feel like those competitions are a lot slower than the pace that he's going to experience at the Prem, and it's going to take him a while to get acclimatized to that. But as far as his understanding of the game and what we're going to be asking him, the roles that we're going to ask him to take on, I don't think that we're going to see, him struggle to adapt to what Maresca's asking of him. Yes, I do paint a glorious picture of JORREL HATO, and I have no doubt in my mind that he has the potential to be a top fullback once he matures and, really settles down his game a bit more. But there are things that he needs to work on. Like much of the stuff that we were seeing from him would have been him as an 18-year-old or even a 17-year-old, because he only really just turned 19 in March, hadn't played a lot of football since then. So a lot of the work that we've seen from JORREL HATO right now is as an 18-year-old, and obviously he's flourishing in that role, but he still has a lot to learn. Let's just be real, he has a lot to learn. Like one of the things that I'm most concerned with is the gap control and the ability to assess the space between yourself and an attacker, and when to go in and when to jockey. All that stuff needs to be negotiated before you go in and make a rash tackle, which he seems to make quite often at the age of 18. Like there have been times where his first instinct in a defensive situation is to just go to ground and just win a sliding tackle. And in the Premier League, you really do have to stay on your feet. You cannot be going to ground as much as I've seen JORREL HATO do when trying to win the ball. Like he's been quite successful in his duels, his ground duels, at winning them, but with the pace of the Premier League and just the physicality, I really think that he needs to be able to just negotiate that space a little bit more without going to ground to win tackles. He has to be able to judge when to just jockey and just like ride the challenges, and when to go in and win the ball. That is something that comes with time and age. Once he gets a little bit more experience with playing in a side that plays the way Chelsea does, and once he gets a little bit more experience playing against top sides, he's going to learn that he has to really just compose himself when he's coming into the tackles. Now that's the first thing. It's not the only thing though. Like I think that also one of the things that he's been exposed on is his right. Whenever he has an attacker, an inside forward coming in and is coming in on their left and attacking his right foot, he doesn't really have the ability to close that space effectively, and oftentimes you see an attacker get space to take off a shot, to let off a shot in those situations, and that again is just because he hasn't really negotiated the space between himself and the attacker yet. And once he comes to grips with that, I'm sure he'll be able to close that space a little bit more effectively. Let's not forget that he's only really just started playing fullback for a year now, and the stuff that you have to be able to adjust to as a fullback, inside forwards coming in, and then also like marshalling down the line and making sure that no crosses come in. Those are very new things for him. So once he comes to grips with that aspect of the game, I think that we're going to see a fullback that is a little bit more composed and not so willing to go to ground and win tackles. I think that he can use his physicality and his pace to just basically marshal defenders a little bit more once he gets better at assessing what the situation is. There's no question that defensively his anticipation is quite good, and obviously his first step, his ability to close space is quite good. He's very aggressive in the tackles, but in the Premier League he's going to have to show a little bit more composure, stay on his feet a little bit more, and be able to not open up so much space when defenders come in and attack his right foot, because in the Premier League, there's going to be a ton of like inside forwards, the likes of Salah, Saka, that will expose that quite readily if he's not careful about how he approaches those situations. But all in all, I think that just comes with age, that just comes with experience, and when he gets more acclimatized to playing that left back position, I think that under the tutelage of Maresca and under the guidance of Cucurella, we should be able to snuff out some of that stuff and mitigate some of the damage as well. But ladies and gentlemen, world champions, make no mistake, this is an exciting player. This is a guy that I think fits the mold for what we want to do under Enzo Maresca. He is a guy that is pacey, physical, fits the Premier League style of football to a T. And once he, matures and figures out what it is that Maresca is asking of him, how we need him to defend, how we need him to attack spaces, how we need him to be aware of what we're doing in transition, all of that stuff. Once he gets the tutelage from the likes of Maresca, I think that the sky's the limit for this guy. Just because, again, physically, technically, he is a top player already. He already has the poise and composure that is well beyond his years. So now it's about taking those other pieces, using those as a foundation, and taking the other bits of his games, the reading of the game, the defensive awareness, the closing of space, the gap control, and really allowing for that to flourish and learn and grow. And then we're gonna have a fantastic player on our hands. So it's gonna take some time, because as we all know, young defenders take time to learn their craft, and we have to give him the time and space to do that. Fortunately, we do have somebody in front of him in the likes of Cucurella, who is world class as of right now, probably one of the best left backs in the game. He will not be thrown into the fire right from the beginning. He will be given time to adjust naturally and not be thrown right into it. So I expect him to be, rounding into the form that we want to see within a year or two. So this is a good position to be in right now. With Cucurella being the incumbent and JORREL HATO learning as an understudy, it's a match made in heaven as far as I'm concerned. I think that JORREL HATO has skill set that maybe Cucurella doesn't have. And, at the same time, he can learn a lot from what Cucurella does possess as one of the best left backs in world football right now. So happy days, guys, happy days. Long may it continue. We're obviously recruiting with purpose right now. It seems like Chelsea have identified a style of football that they want to play under Maresca, and are finding the pieces that fit that and match the quality as well. So, I'm looking forward to the season. I know that we haven't really finished what we're doing in the window. You'll probably hear me come back and speak again about Xavi Simons in a couple of days. I haven't spoken on the likes of Bino Gittins, who I think will also add some quality, and of course, a whole host of others that have come into the side right now. So look forward to those. Look out for those. I will be doing some more in the upcoming days as transfers come in. But until then, keep the blue flag flying high and up the Chels. Peace.